My son looked me straight in the eye and told me he never loved me, said it was because I spent most of my time focused on his sister. She has Down syndrome. And now? My wife is pointing the finger at me and my daughter's carrying guilt she doesn't deserve. I'm a 47-year-old father. Been married to my wife for close to 20 years. We have 2 kids, Luca, our 17-year-old son, and Mira, our 15-year-old daughter. Mira was born with Down syndrome. I went back and forth about whether to even share this. It's not easy putting private family stuff out there. But I've hit a wall and I need to hear from other parents who've been through something like this. Maybe I'm not alone in this mess. 2 nights ago, Luca said something that's been echoing in my head ever since. He was calm, not angry, not yelling. Just quiet. He looked at me and said, "I never loved you. You were never really there. You only ever cared about Mira." No shouting. No drama. Just this flat, steady voice that cut deeper than any angry outburst ever could. It felt like he'd rehearsed it. Or maybe he didn't need to. Maybe he's been sitting with that feeling for years and it just finally came out. Now my wife's placing the blame squarely on me. Myra's asking me what she did wrong. And I'm left here wondering if I really did drop the ball as a dad, or if this is just one of those harsh realities of parenting that sneaks up on you until you're already buried in the fallout. Let me backtrack a little. When we found out Mira had Down syndrome, we were still expecting. The 24-week scan gave us the news. So it wasn't a total shock, but man, it still hit hard. I'm not going to pretend it didn't. I had this image in my head of what being a dad would look like: little league, camping trips, watching Luca grow up while I stood beside him as his guide. I had no idea where I fit into a world of IEP meetings, therapy appointments, and speech pathologists. But when Mira was born, all that fear got shoved to the side. She was so small, so delicate, and she needed us in ways Luca never had. I didn't consciously choose to go all in, but that's what happened. I threw myself into learning baby sign language, juggling therapy sessions, speaking up at school meetings, and showing up at every doctor's visit I could. It felt like a second full-time job. Back then, Luca was just 5, still learning how to tie his shoes, and all of a sudden he had a baby sister who needed nearly all our focus and energy. I figured he'd adapt. That once the chaos settled, we'd find some kind of balance. But that balance never really came. And if I'm honest with myself, that's my fault. It's not like I walked away from Luca. I was physically there. But mentally and emotionally, I wasn't as present as I should have been. I missed things. School plays, little milestones. I didn't always catch the signs when he started pulling away. I told myself it was okay. He was independent. He didn't need as much from me. But now I'm wondering if that independence I was so proud of was really just distance, him quietly building walls while I wasn't paying attention. My wife stayed home for the first couple of years after Mira was born. We didn't have anyone close by to help. Her parents live across the country. Mine had already passed. And hiring a nanny was out of the question financially. So it was just us figuring it out as we went. I worked long hours, came home, and buried myself in routines and to-do lists. Tunnel vision was easier. Maybe even safer. Before I knew it, I turned into more of a project manager than a parent. Luca, for what it's worth, never gave us trouble. No outbursts, no calls from school. He did well in class, kept a couple friends, and mostly stuck to himself. I took that as a sign things were okay. That I hadn't screwed up as bad as I feared. But just because someone's quiet doesn't mean they're okay. Sometimes silence just means they've given up on being heard. Then last month, during an oral presentation at school, Luca had what they called a mild panic episode. He's been seeing a counselor since. They said it's probably normal teenage anxiety. But something changed after that. He got quieter at home, but sharper, like his thoughts were churning hard underneath. He kept his headphones on during dinner. Gave one-word answers. Then came the moment that wrecked me. I tried to talk to him, just a normal, everyday conversation, and he cut straight to it. Told me he never loved me. That I picked his sister and left him out. Now I feel like the ground's been ripped out from under me. Last night, my wife let it all out. She said she's been doing her best to raise both our kids while I poured myself into one. That I got so wrapped up in Myra's care, she stopped feeling like their mom and started feeling like an assistant. She said she tried to take on some of the responsibility, but I pushed her out. That I made the choice, Mira over everything else. She didn't say it with anger, just this quiet resentment that's probably been sitting in her chest for years. And I didn't argue. Not because I can't stand up for myself, believe me, I can, but because she was right. Later that same night, Mira came into our room while we were clearing the dinner plates. She looked up at me and asked if Luca was upset with her. I asked her why, and she said, "Because I take up all your time. I can stop needing stuff. I'll try really hard not to mess up so much." That shattered something in me. This was never about favorites. I don't love Mira more, but I have given her more of my time, more attention, more energy. Not because I thought she was more important, but because I was terrified of what might happen if I didn't. And in doing that, I missed what was happening to Luca. I assumed he was okay because he acted okay. Now I'm being told by him, by my wife, by everything around me that he wasn't. I've never been the kind of dad who dodges responsibility. I don't sugarcoat things. I don't pretend I'm perfect. But this hurts in a way I can't shake. Because I really did try. I just wasn't trying the right way. Now I've got a son who can barely meet my eyes, a wife who feels more like a coworker than a partner, and a daughter who blames herself for it all. I'm not writing this to get sympathy. I just don't know how to fix this. I know it's not something that gets solved overnight. Rebuilding trust takes time. But I can't just sit here doing nothing. So if there are any parents out there who've gone through something like this, maybe you had to divide your time unevenly because of health issues, behavioral problems, divorce, whatever the reason. How do you start healing things with the kid who ended up on the sidelines? How do you reach a child who's already convinced you're not worth the effort? Because right now, I don't know if Luca hates me or if he's just done trying altogether. Update 1. Thank you to everyone who commented on my last post. I've read every single reply, some of them more than once. A few were tough to take in. But honestly, I needed that. I didn't write that last post looking for pity, I was searching for some kind of clarity. And honestly, I got more than I expected. A lot has unfolded in just a week. Let me start with Luca. He asked if he could go stay for a while with his cousins, my wife's sister's kids. I didn't push back. I didn't beg him to stay or try to make him feel bad. I just asked if he was absolutely sure. He nodded. So I helped him pack a small duffel bag and I drove him myself. The drive took about 2 hours. We didn't talk much. He had his headphones in, but I realized pretty quickly there was no music playing. He was pretending to be tuned out so he didn't have to talk to me. When we got to the house, I didn't get out right away. I sat there with the engine running, looking straight ahead, and asked, "Did you mean it? What you said that you never loved me?" He stared at the dashboard for a long beat. Then, without looking at me, he said, "I don't know. I just don't feel anything when you're around." That line, it's been rattling around in my chest ever since. What gutted me the most wasn't anger, it was the emptiness in his voice. If he'd shouted, if he'd cursed me out, I'd at least know there was still a fire there. Something we could work through. But that emotional flatline? That scares me. It feels like I already lost him, and the worst part is, I didn't even realize when it happened. When I got back home, my wife and I finally had the conversation we'd been avoiding for years. No yelling. Just raw, unfiltered truth. She's grieving too, in her own way. She told me it's not just me she's mad at. She's angry at herself. At life. At how damn unfair it all feels. Then she said something I wasn't ready to hear. I don't even know if we're really in a marriage anymore. I wanted to push back. Wanted to say, I've been here. I've worked hard. I've cared. But I didn't. Because I knew she was right. We've been coexisting. Just managing, surviving, not actually living. I told her I never meant for her to feel like she was raising Luca alone. That I didn't set out to become this moon orbiting only around Mira. And then I said something I hadn't even admitted to myself until that moment. I didn't choose Mira instead of Luca. I just didn't know how to choose both. Mira always had something urgent, something that needed fixing. It wasn't a justification. It was a confession. And in that quiet moment, we both kind of cracked. Not in some dramatic Hollywood meltdown. Just in that tired way people do when they've been carrying too much for too long. We stayed up for hours after that, talking. About everything. About the time Luca won second place at the science fair and I wasn't there because Mira had to see a specialist. About the school field trip he missed because I forgot to sign the permission slip. About how he eventually stopped asking to go camping with me after I said, maybe next time, one too many times. I didn't even know he'd kept track. But he had. Myra's been reacting to all of this in the only way she knows how, by slipping backwards. She had a full-blown meltdown in the grocery store the other day because I wouldn't buy her another stuffed animal. Cried the whole ride home. She hasn't done anything like that since she was 8. She started wetting the bed again. Her teacher called and said she's been quiet at school. Not raising her hand like she usually does. Every single night now, she asks if Luca's coming back. A couple nights ago, I found her sitting in the hallway outside Luca's room, quietly sketching in her drawing pad. She'd drawn a picture of the three of us, me, her, and Luca holding hands. She looked up at me and asked, if I stop being hard, will Luca come back? I didn't cry then. I waited until she was asleep. Then I sat down in Luca's empty room, and everything I'd been holding in just hit me like a freight train. I started writing in a journal. At first, it was just me doing what I've always done, tracking Myra's progress. But pretty quickly, I realized I wasn't writing about her. I was writing about the only part of my life where I've ever felt like I was doing something right. With Mira, there were milestones, progress I could see and measure. She learned a new word in sign language. She got through a dentist visit without crying. She made a new friend. Each moment felt like a win, proof that I wasn't failing. But with Luca, I never really knew what he needed. He didn't ask, and I didn't push to find out. I convinced myself that no news meant he was okay. I mistook silence for peace. But now I know better. That was me being afraid. This week, I finally made an appointment with a therapist. Had my first session 2 days ago. One of the first things she told me was, "You're grieving someone who's still alive." And she's right. I'm grieving Luca. Not because he's gone, but because I don't recognize him anymore. Or maybe the truth is, I never really knew him to begin with. Maybe I just didn't know how to be his dad. But that doesn't mean I'm giving up on him. I told my wife I want to start fixing this. Not with some grand gesture or empty apology, but slowly, genuinely. Something Luca can believe in again, if he ever decides to give me that chance. So here's what I came up with. One message once a week. That's it. No long texts. No guilt trips. No please come home paragraphs. Just a small reminder that he still matters to us, even if he's not here. The first one went out yesterday. Mira waved at a random car today because she thought it was you. She was embarrassed after, but she smiled anyway. He left it on read. Didn't respond. And that's okay, because I'm not doing this for instant results. I'm doing this because I'm not willing to let my son fade into the background without trying everything I can. I can't rewrite the past, but I can show him going forward that he's still seen, still valued, even if it's just one message at a time. Update 2. Luca came home for one night. I didn't expect it. My birthday was coming up, but I hadn't mentioned it to anyone. Didn't want to create awkwardness or pressure anyone into fake sentiment. I've never really been big on birthdays anyway. Not since Mira was born and all our time and money started going elsewhere. But on the actual day, right around 5 in the evening, my sister-in-law's car pulled into the driveway. Luca stepped out and walked in without saying much. He handed me a card. Just a simple store-bought birthday card with shiny gold letters. No note inside. But still, he gave me something. We had dinner together. Spaghetti and garlic bread, his favorite, though he barely touched it. When he walked in, Mira tried to hug him right away. He flinched a little. Not a lot, but just enough for me to notice. Still, he gave her a brief side hug and mumbled, "Hey!" She looked unsure at first but smiled anyway. At the table, most of the talking came from my wife and Mira. Luca kept quiet, answered questions with one word here and there. At one point, Mira asked if he wanted to play a board game after dinner. He said, "Maybe next time." Then, when we sang Happy Birthday, he actually joined in. His voice cracked near the end. I don't know if it was nerves or emotion, but he sang. That was the one real, unguarded moment of the night. After dinner, I asked if he'd sit with me for a bit. We ended up in the garage. That was his choice, not mine. I think Luca chose the garage because he didn't want Mira overhearing anything. And maybe it just felt easier than having some heavy talk in the living room where everything's too familiar. I asked him straight up, "Did your aunt make you come?" He shook his head. "No. I just wanted to see how things were." Like he was a stranger driving past an old house, just circling back out of curiosity. I asked him what he meant by that. He didn't really explain. Just gave a small shrug and said, wanted to see if anything changed. I told him I was trying. That I'd messed up and I wasn't about to pretend I hadn't. But I also told him something I hadn't said before, mostly because I'd been drowning in guilt. I said, "I'm still your dad. I'm not giving up on you. But I'm not going to chase you down either. If you need space, I'll give it. But I won't spend the rest of my life walking on eggshells like I did something unforgivable forever. I love you." That hasn't changed. He didn't say anything. Just kept staring down at the garage floor like maybe it had an answer I couldn't give. Then he asked me something that caught me off guard. "Are you and Mom getting divorced?" I told him no, not unless something major shifts. I explained that we're in therapy and we're doing the work. We're not splitting up. I wanted to ask him why he brought that up. Had he always seen our cracks? Did he never really see us as a team? But I let it go. Instead, I told him the plain truth. Probably the most honest thing I've said to him in years. We both made mistakes, I said. Me more than anyone. But I'm not quitting on this family. He gave a slight nod, said he needed to head out and left with his aunt. I didn't stop him. Didn't ask when he'd come back. When I walked back inside, I found Mira in her room crying. She'd been trying to draw me a birthday card but had crumpled it up when Luca left. I asked her why. She said it was supposed to be from both of us. She's still holding on to the idea that this is her fault. That's something she did drove Luca away. We've told her over and over that it's not true, but I don't think she believes us. Maybe because, deep down, we didn't believe it ourselves until recently. That night, my wife brought up family therapy again, not just for the kids, but for us. For the roles we've both been stuck in for too long. She had one condition and she didn't sugarcoat it: you've got to let me parent Mira. Actually parent her, not just treat me like one of her therapists you need to manage. It hit me hard. But she wasn't wrong. I've been so afraid of letting anything slip through the cracks, of Mira missing something crucial, that I slowly edged my wife out of the picture. Even when she offered to help, I'd third-guess her. She doesn't know the routine, I think. I'll just do it faster myself. But that kind of micromanaging? It didn't just push her away. It pushed Luca away too. And maybe even Mira in ways I didn't notice. So we booked the first session, just the two of us for now. If Luca agrees later, we'll add him. And if he doesn't, we'll keep going anyway. I also made a decision: I'm done waiting on Luca to make the next move. No more standing back, hoping he comes around. I've been sticking to one message a week. Nothing heavy. No guilt. Just little updates from home. The most recent one said Mira made pancakes this morning, said they were Luca style because she burned them a little. Thought you'd get a kick out of that. He saw it. Didn't reply. And that's okay. I'm not in this for a quick turnaround. I'm doing it because I love my son. And I'm not giving up. Update 3. It's been a while since I last posted, and though nothing's magically fixed, I think something new, maybe even better, is beginning to take shape. We've been in therapy for a full month now. My wife and I go every week. Luca's joined for 2 sessions so far. They haven't been easy. They've been raw. Honest in the kind of way that makes your stomach twist. But they've been necessary. During that first session, Luca barely looked at me. He kept his hoodie up, arms crossed tight, just staring at the floor like he was counting the seconds until it ended. I didn't interrupt. Didn't try to defend myself or explain anything away. I just sat there and listened. And yeah, it hurt. But it was the right thing to do. The third session, he finally opened up. What he said is something I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. Luca told us it wasn't just that I gave Mira more time. He said what really got to him was the unspoken expectation, the invisible pressure that he always had to be okay because his sister wasn't. That we never made space for him to be angry or upset or selfish like other kids. Whenever he got frustrated with Mira, when she interrupted, when she made too much noise, when she followed him around, we'd ask him to be patient, to be mature, to understand. He was 5, then 9, then 10. And we kept treating him like a little adult because we were just too tired or too wrapped up in Myra's world to really see what he needed. Then he told me something that broke me in a way I wasn't ready for. He said the only time he ever felt like I really saw him was when he caught the flu in 4th grade and had a high fever. I stayed home from work those 3 days, sat beside him, made him soup, watched cartoons with him. He said he remembered thinking, I wish I could stay sick forever, at least then you'd stay. I couldn't even get a word out. I just stared at the floor, trying to hold it together. The therapist had to step in and keep things moving. But that moment, it changed me. Not in a vague, motivational poster kind of way. In a real, irreversible way. I had to decide right then. Either I start taking real responsibility, or I spend the rest of my life hiding behind good intentions. So I made a small but important decision. I told Luca I wouldn't ask for forgiveness, not yet. Because it's not about me being forgiven. It's about him being seen. I told him we'd try something different. 1 day a month. Just for him. No Mira. No chores. No distractions. Just his day, his choice. I'd follow his lead, whatever that meant. He hesitated. I could see the doubt on his face, like he didn't trust it wouldn't come with strings. But in the end, he agreed. Our first Luca day was simple. He picked a hiking trail near Folsom. Quiet, shaded, peaceful. I half expected him to back out. But he didn't. We walked for hours. Barely talked. Just took in the trees, the breeze, the quiet. Afterward, we grabbed burgers. He didn't open up much, but at one point we saw a dog on the trail wearing sunglasses and he cracked a smile. A real one. And that one smile felt bigger than any speech he could have given. The third Luca day was all about movies. His pick for ridiculous horror sequels I'd never heard of. We stocked up on junk food, ordered way too much pizza, and he walked me through every bad plot twist and over-the-top death scene like a seasoned critic. And I wasn't just pretending to enjoy it, I did enjoy it. Because for the first time in a long while, he let me into his world. And I think he noticed. He's still quiet around me. Still doesn't start conversations, and honestly, most days he keeps to himself. But now, when I sit next to him, he doesn't stiffen up or pull away. That's something. That's progress. Mira, too, is doing better. Therapy has given her more ways to express what she's feeling, and she's less anxious overall. She still talks about Luca all the time, but it's not as heavy now. She's been drawing again, mostly pictures of the three of us together. In her latest one, we're each holding balloons. Mine was blue, Luca's was red, and hers was pink with little stars. She told me it meant we were on the same sky again. I don't know where she picked up that phrase, but it hit me right in the chest. My wife and I have been doing the work, too. The couple's therapy has been more intense than I expected. Not in a shouting match way. We're past that. But we're untangling years of bitterness and unspoken things. She told me, flat out, that back when Mira was little, she felt invisible. Like I didn't believe she was strong enough to handle the hard parts. Like I didn't trust her. And she's right. I took control of everything because it was the only place in my life where I felt like I knew what I was doing. I told her that too. That everywhere else, in my job, in our marriage, with Luca, I felt like I was failing. But with Mira, there were goals. Milestones. Wins I could point to and say, see? I'm doing something right. And in clinging to that, I pushed her out. We're not faking it anymore. No forced hand-holding, no pretending everything's okay. But we're being real. And somehow that's brought us closer than we've been in a long time. We're also finally starting to share the parenting load. I've started stepping back on purpose. Letting her handle more of Myra's routines. Trusting her even when it means things aren't done my way. That's been tough for me. But she stepped up. And Myra's responded in a way I didn't expect. She told her mom the other day, I like when you do it your way. I needed to hear that. We made another change too, one that felt long overdue. We agreed on a new rule, no talking about Luca unless he's included. No whispers. No side chats. If the conversation is about him, then he gets a say. He deserves that respect. Next week will be our third Luca day. He said he wants to try go-karting, told me he used to want to when he was younger but didn't ask because he figured I'd be too busy. That stung. But I kept a straight face and said, let's do it. This road we're on, it's not smooth. Not even close. Luca still locks his door at night. Mira still tears up when he leaves for school without saying goodbye. My wife and I still fall into silence when we're exhausted. But we're walking this road now. Together. And for the first time in a long time, I don't feel like I'm losing my family. I feel like I'm learning how to earn them back. Final update. This'll probably be the last time I post about this. Though, if I've learned anything, it's that parenting always finds ways to surprise you. Luca moved back home. There wasn't some big moment. No dramatic scene. Just a quiet midweek return. He walked in with a duffel bag, dropped it by the front door, and asked, what's for dinner? My wife and I exchanged a look and just nodded. No questions. No fanfare. He's back under our roof. The emotional walls are still up, sure. But that's okay. You can't force a bridge to rebuild itself in a day, especially not when you were the one who let it crumble. But this? It's a beginning. He's home. He's safe. And we've got time. One thing I never did and never will is grovel. Not out of pride. God knows therapy has shown me exactly where I failed. But I don't want Luca thinking that love from a parent should come with guilt or desperation. Love shows up. Over and over. Even when it's hard. Even when you feel like you don't deserve a second chance. We talk now. Not deep, not often, but it's no longer ice-cold silence. A couple weeks ago, I walked past his room and heard Mira laughing. I paused. The door was half shut and I saw Luca sitting with her, helping her set up her math app. He wasn't just going through the motions. He was patient, talking her through it, nodding as she figured it out. And that laugh, it wasn't just hers. He laughed too. A real, warm sound. I didn't walk in. I didn't say anything. I just let the moment be. Later that night, he came into the kitchen while I was finishing the dishes. Poured himself a glass of water and leaned against the counter. She's a lot smarter than people think, he said. I nodded. Yeah, she is. Then he walked out. No big moment. No hug. But it meant everything. We're still doing therapy. My wife and I go every other week. Luca comes once a month. Myra's not part of those sessions. She's still a bit young, but the therapist gave us tools to help her understand. Books, drawing exercises, ways to connect emotions to routines. She doesn't understand the whole picture, but she sees the colors. She knows something big happened, and she knows we're working on it. My wife and I have faced some hard truths between us. We're not fixed. There are still mornings where we don't talk. Still nights where we drift apart, each on our own side of the couch. But now when the silence settles in, we name it. We don't act like it's normal. And that's a step forward. One of the biggest changes? I let go of micromanaging Myra's world. That was a mountain for me. When your child has a disability, structure becomes your lifeline. Schedules feel like armor. Letting someone else take the reins feels like handing over something fragile with no instructions. But I did it. My wife now handles her speech therapy schedule and coordinates with her aides. I still go to the IEP meetings, but now I listen. I don't correct her. I don't take over. She's better at it than I ever gave her credit for. And Luca days? Those are still sacred. Once a month. His pick. No Mira. No errands. No hidden agenda. Just time together in his world. Last month, he picked an escape room and Thai food. This month, we went to a soccer match. He still doesn't talk a ton, but he laughs more. Looks over at me without flinching. He lets me pat his shoulder without stiffening. Sometimes when I ask about school, he answers with more than just one word. That's not just progress. That's healing. Mira turned 15 last weekend. We kept it simple, a small party. Just us, her teacher, and a neighbor she loves. Luca gave her a stuffed dolphin, blue and silver, with a little ribbon tied around its neck. But he didn't just hand it to her. He knelt down, looked her in the eye, and said, "Happy birthday, Danny." That was the first time he'd said her name like that in over a year. She's been carrying that dolphin around the house ever since, like it's treasure. I heard her whispering to it yesterday, "Luca gave you to me." Like that made it magic. And maybe it did. In therapy the other week, our counselor said something that's been bouncing around in my head ever since. You're not fixing a moment. You're repairing a childhood. And man, that hit deep. Because she's right. What broke between Luca and me didn't come from one argument or one missed event. It happened slowly, over time, years of quiet, steady neglect. Not the kind that leaves bruises. Just the kind that leaves a kid feeling like they were never fully seen. There's no grand gesture that's going to fix that. No heartfelt letter, no emotional family dinner. I have to fix it the same way it broke, bit by bit. One small, ordinary day at a time. Same goes for my marriage. We don't pretend everything's fine anymore. We've started having the hard conversations, the kind we used to avoid. When we argue now, it's not explosive. It's cleaner, more honest. We say when we feel invisible. We name the things we used to swallow. And we've started carving out time, just the two of us. Nothing fancy. A walk around the neighborhood. Watching a show together after Myra's asleep. Even just doing the grocery run as a team. It's not romantic. Not yet. But it's something. And right now, something is a whole lot better than nothing. One more thing I want to share before I wrap this up. A few nights back, Luca and I were cleaning up after dinner, just the two of us. Mira was upstairs working on a puzzle and my wife was tied up in a Zoom meeting. I passed him a towel to dry the dishes and asked, "You doing okay?" He shrugged. "Some days." Then, after a beat, he looked up and said, "I don't hate you. Not anymore." I didn't say anything right away. I just nodded. Then he smirked, barely, and added, "Still think your playlist sucks though." And I laughed. Like, really laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was real. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a beginning. So no, there's no shiny, perfect ending here. No sweeping reunion. No tearful group hug that wraps it all up with a bow. Just four people living under one roof. Trying harder than they used to. Listening better. Making room for each other. And maybe most important, learning how to love one another a little differently than before. And for now, that's enough.